Ahoy there, my friends. Well, I got my funky hat on that I just dug out of the closet. It's an 80s style hat, Billabong hat. Takes me back. Never would have worn something like this back then, but hey man, times change. And with times changing come the memories of those times. How we remember them. The particular attributes of our childhood and our upbringing, as well as the shows that we watched, the things that we did. And every once in a while we run into a friend who tells us a story and we say, wait a minute, was that you? Or we tell somebody else a story, rather maybe that happened to us, and they say, that wasn't you, that was a story I told you. I think all of us have had a moment where we realized that one of our memories was flawed, and we kind of laugh it off and chalk it up to, the human nature. We remember certain things and others we don't. Which leads us to today and the what is called the Mandela Effect. Now you may or may not have heard of it. I'm sure people who are interested in the Mandela Effect will end up coming to this video because it says it in the title and because those who are into it are very into it. I'm going to say the Mandela Effect is, to me, just another what I would call a New Age fad. And I don't mean that it's really New Age or that it's even a fad, but that's how I describe many of these things. It's like the goji berry of the spirit world, or the alternative media. Sure, there may be something to it, but it's way blown out of proportion. And so for those who don't know, first off, the Mandela Effect is the idea that we're living in multiple, that the timeline of reality is changing, and that the example used was Mandela. Some people believe that Nelson Mandela died in the 80s in the prison instead of in 94 or whenever. And people swear they remember that. And this started what they called the Mandela Effect, which is people started remembering different words as being written different. Now here's the thing, I'm not going to go too into detail because there are a million videos online that will prove to you without a doubt that the Mandela Effect is real. My personal conclusion is that it's more or less nonsense. And this is because I've gone through and I've looked at it from both sides, the skeptic's point, as well as the actual, the main website, the most popular website for that, to look at all the explanations. And there are ones like the Berenstain Bears were actually the Berenstain Bears, or Sex in the City instead of Sex and the City. And when you look at all of these different things, besides the Nelson Mandela one and maybe the JFK and a couple of other small other events that are like, no, maybe this happened, they're all just words. They're all things that would easily be switched in the human mind. They're the types of things that we tend to forget, like apostrophes. Another example is J.C. Penney's. A lot of people remember it P-E-N-N-Y, not P-E-N-N-E-Y as it is. And this is the latest one I've heard. And I said, well, I've always known it was pennies with an E, because I remember noticing, well, there's no E in penny, and once you pay attention to that, you say, oh, okay, so it's spelled wrong. Natural conclusion is to look at a name and our mind picks up what we need to pick up and we move on. Nobody's going to sit and analyze J.C. Penney's or the Berenstain Bears. But, I don't want to dismiss if anybody out there really thinks that they believe that there are alternate timelines and that this is useful to know and that this can actually be proven or shared or explained beyond just the human mind's natural pattern-seeking behaviors. There's not much I can say about that. I can only give my opinion, and I'm just making this video merely because I haven't made one on this subject yet. And when I first found out about it, it seemed really interesting. And let me tell you, I'm the first person to jump into any type of alternative news or information. I shouldn't even call it alternative. I don't know what the name for it would be. Anything that's out of the mainstream I've been obsessed with since I was young. I got into aliens and stuff like that when I was quite young, and then about 20 years ago, I got really into the whole conspiracy realm and learned about the whole idea behind New World Order and secret societies and assassinations, and I realized I'd been deluded, that the world that I'd grown up in was not the real world. And once I realized that, I felt disillusioned, and naturally I felt lied to. But it took 20 years to assimilate that knowledge and to realize that it's not always somebody lying to you. sometimes the information's just obscured. In other words, we try to often say, you know, other humans or even aliens are hiding our true selves from us. And I just laugh. How can you possibly say that someone's keeping you down? It's just that people don't want to take the initiative to find themselves. So I'm not saying that there aren't people being held down. It's always been this way. But what I'm saying is that the Mandela Effect is not something that I believe is a hidden conspiracy that's being hidden from us, which a lot of people think. And then there are others who don't believe that it's being hidden, but that just nobody knows about it, or that nobody wants to admit that it's real. So I would pose, I guess, try to keep this video simple, pose the question of, are there any actual historical events of use that we can confirm with the Mandela Effect? And even if we were able to prove it exists, how is it serving us? How are we learning from it? How are we benefiting from Berenstain Bears or J.C. Penney's? And why are they always names and simple things that would... And to me this shows the human pattern recognition to an obsessive level, to where even if you can find information to dispute what you think might be true, it's much easier sometimes to just believe it is, because it's exciting. But I think we have to be honest with ourselves, because people are spending all this time trying to find these connections between past and present realities and different dimensional things which may not even exist in the first place, or they may. So my question is always, what's the use of it, and how can we do something with it? So, you know, as usual, do your research and draw your own conclusions.